Okay.
Amazing. Sorry, I was just fiddling around and it looks like I hadn't been recording before. So now I am finally recording. Sorry about that. I think what everyone should probably know is that a lot of the artwork that you are going to see in these slides is all Joey's. So Joey, do you want to just kind of tell a little bit about the book's genesis and what you're hoping to achieve with it?
Yeah, so I've spent probably 20 years as a fashion stylist and designer. I have two different lines. One of them's in Fred Siegel and one of them's at Amory's in Newport and 4510 in Dallas. But in the meantime, I was speaking with my mentor. A couple of writers I'd given him all of my paperwork from when you leave the system when you're 18. They give you like all your documents, like all police reports and et cetera, that put you in the system, right? And I hadn't looked at them in so many years, and I had passed them on to a couple writers that turned it into a screenplay. My mentor, the woman who hired me, her name is Teresa. She hired me for Britney Spears. She's hired me for so many incredible job opportunities. And it says something about building relationships with people, because when you meet people, you never know like who is gonna, be there along the way, And Teresa was really there for me. And I think being able to identify that she was such a strong influence in my life, but she now has a production company. She produced Everything Everywhere All at Once. And she got the script, read it, and she said, for IP property, which I'm a creative for the most part, so IP property was like new to me. She said that you need to write a book. And I was like, well, that to me seems like ego. Like there's a script, like I don't really need to write a book. And she said, well, legally you do. And she is the one that said, I already knew you were going to say no. And she said, I have the format. I just want you to write 20 letters from, my birth name is Jennifer. So she wanted me to write 20 letters from Joey, who I am today, to Jennifer during the, traumatic moments of growing up in the system. And she just wanted to submit them for, IP property protection. And I said, oh, you know what? I'm going to have that to you in 2 weeks. And it was just before COVID. And I hadn't really delved into my childhood in all those years. I just really stayed focused on styling and my business. And I just never really looked back. And through this process of writing the book, I hadn't intended on drawing. I hadn't drawn in probably over a decade and a half. Like I hire illustrators to do stuff for me for my clothing lines. So I just guess I had not tapped back into a talent that I had. And once I started writing the beginning letters, and they were taped up on the walls and I could see them. I could visually see what the pages were supposed to look like. And so I just picked up a big pen and started sketching on the original, handwritten letters, just trying to put it together. And it took 3 years. So it went all the way through COVID. And then I kept thinking, oh, this is the final draft. This is the final draft. This is the final draft. And, it's such a tender topic because it, touches on child abuse, and, words have to be so careful. You got to get the words right. And I just wanted to make sure that the message in the book wasn't like a victimized story, because I feel like there's so much power in going through your life and looking at the circumstances that are presented to you and finding a way through them and perspective, and flipping it into how is this, like, this is part of my path, and there has to be purpose, So I think that going through the book, and I relearned myself. I went through a complete metamorphosis in so many ways.
Yeah, I was actually wondering, for all of you who are chiming in, I read Joey's book, and I was wondering how much of your growth happened during those 3 years as you were writing and illustrating, as opposed to, you know, as you were growing up and post book. There must have been so much of it.
It really flips you upside down, you know, it makes you question everything and look at relationships that you have, and you can see patterns in why you've developed these relationships and why you've been drawn to certain people. And I mean, I think that, you know, God bless Teresa for putting me, so she was very, you know, adamant about me doing this. And I am really fortunate to have found really special women around me through, you know, because I left Olive Crest when I was 18, on my 18th birthday. And then that's it. You don't go back. Like, you just got to go forward, and there's no family, you know, guidance or help or assistance. You know, you just have to move forward. And I think that, like, what helped me was to just always say to myself, like, literally in the mirror almost every day when I'm growing up, was none of this is just right now, and it's just a part of everything's going to be okay, because I'm going to be so successful. Like, I really leaned in on, all I wanted to do was be successful. But like, it's amazing how the universe and God answers you. And, you know, I remember, you know, I was 11 years old, sleeping in a field, and I didn't say, hey, God, I want to go on a world tour with Britney Spears doing clothing. I just was like, I want to travel and see the world. Please keep me safe, you know, which that's what happened. I was lucky enough to land in a group home and be surrounded by people that cared about kids and wanting to help develop them and create a safe environment for them to grow. And I mean, I was lucky enough to land in Orangewood. And I think that because I was always curious, and I never really took anything for granted, you know, I was so grateful for, like, every moment, because once I left the home, like, I experienced a whole different world. You know, I started dating, you know, the lead singer of a band that took me on a domestic tour. So I kind of started learning that world. And I honestly was so drawn to it because, you know, when you're on the road, you wake up in a different city every day, and it's a whole new world every day. And you're living in a bubble, touring with, you know, I mean, really big bands, you know, like Corn and Sublime. And, you know, Teresa put me on the Gwen Stefani tour doing the Harajuku Girls. Like, I've had so many great opportunities because I think that I'm open to them. And I think that a lot of times when you experience trauma at a young age, there's like a self-worth issue, and you fear, like, you're afraid to, like, go out and try, because you think you're going to fail, because you've got programming from parents or whoever it was in your whose ever circumstance, that you have these, you know, records playing in your head of, you're not this, and you can't do this, and you can't do that. But nothing defines you but yourself. You look at yourself every day. You're the person who has to answer to yourself. You have to set your own goals. You can't compete or compare with other people's successes or failures or any of it, because everybody's on their own path, and everybody's discoveries are special and unique to themselves. And I think that's kind of what's so special about social media, is that, like, look, we're able to sit here together, and we would have never met. Like, this is incredible, right? But it's an opportunity where we can learn about each other, and hopefully there's a takeaway, you know?
Absolutely. So let's go back, Alexa, if you can turn to the next slide. Let's dive into this a little bit. I know you told us a little bit about Teresa and you writing to yourself, but there's something so special about this, and you coming from your current place to your past and speaking to yourself with a certain gentleness. And can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, the concept came from Teresa. Literally, she said, she gave me the format. It switched to 23 letters because she had asked for 20, but I changed my name at 23 to Joey. It was my brother's name that is my blood brother. And we had been separated when I was put in the system. And so when I sat at SAG and they said, what do you want your name to be? I was like, oh, let's call me Joey. You know, it felt like he was with me, protecting me, you know? So that's where Joey came from. And I'm sorry, I got distracted.
No, keep going. We were just kind of talking about where this all came from. And you said 23 letters. It was supposed to be 20. It's now 23. You're talking about your brother, and anything else you want to share about the concept of the book.
Yeah, well, the concept of the book, what's interesting is that like it probably wouldn't have even been like a thought, but I had started a couple of years ago going back to Orangewood, which is also one of the children's homes I lived in, and speaking to the kids because I was literally geographically in that particular home. So it made sense for me to go back and try to be some sort of something like a guidance or something, because I know how dark it can become, like when you don't have hope and you don't see the light. And what's interesting is I think that I had to have this incredible styling career. Like I've worked with some of the greatest talent, like Billy Bob Thornton, Betty White, like Viggo Mortenson, like incredible talent that it's like, you know, it's Andy Garcia, it's these like real wonderful people that have, they inspire people with what they do, right?
Mhm.
So I think that had I not had this career, I wouldn't have felt like I was validated to even go and speak, but I wanted to go and like kind of shine a light on the kids and be like, you can do anything you want. Like I've traveled the world. Like, if you can see that it's happening in the world, nothing can stop you except for yourself. Like if you're persistent and you really believe in your vision, I think manifesting is so important, and being really clear about like your purpose. And sometimes it's hard to figure out what your purpose is, and it's hard to wake up every day and like put one foot in front of the other. But I feel like if you are persistent in the way that you do the best that you can every single day, and you wake up and you just move forward, even if it's like one step or two steps, or just do as much as you possibly emotionally can, you're gonna win, you know. It doesn't matter how slow you move, you know, like as long as you're persistent and you believe in it. And like I feel really fortunate because like honestly, when I go back and look at my resume of all the talent, I've worked with hundreds of people, I've worked on so many shows, I've worked on movies, I've toured with like the biggest bands like all over the world. And you know, that came because I loved clothes so much. And I feel like we're born, like we all have something inside of us that like it's just like a natural gift. And who would have thought, you know, I mean, this is the 90s. Who would have thought that styling was going to turn into the career that it turned into? I think Kurt and Bart were like the pioneers. And I just, you know, I'm not going to say that it's all luck, because you have to be diligent in putting yourself in the right places and putting yourself in moments of opportunity to be able to grasp onto something and grow it, you know? So there is luck, but I think that comes with being a good person and having pure intentions and believing in whatever your particular field is, believing that you're great. And I always felt like clothes were just, well, first of all, it's fun for me, and I love fashion. So that in itself is a reward to be able to do that every day, but then to be able to work with people in the caliber of people that I've worked with, it's also just, you know, you think about when people need a fashion stylist, right? People don't need a stylist. Well, at a certain point, I mean, especially I worked with a reality star that, man, I mean, The Hills was a huge show, and Audrina needed outfits for just like, we had to line them up like, this is to go to the grocery store, this is to go to the gas station, because there was so much paparazzi at that time just following her everywhere. But for the most part, a fashion stylist, a celebrity stylist, you're working with people at the height of their game. So you're constantly surrounded by inspiration and dedication to your craft. And it, you know, it would be impossible not to soak up that energy, you know. Dustin Hoffman came to my third fashion show, and he said to me, it was a very special moment. He said that he could see me, and he said, you can't even help it. You wake up every day and this is what you do. And it was like, there's these little moments throughout your career and your life that, you know, maybe 2-minute conversation that we had, like, lives inside of me. Like every day I think about it, you know, like, this is what I do. And I'm proud of my work, and I'm proud of, you know, what my work does for people, you know, like fashion, like it like brings out people, it like makes them shine, you know. I worked on a show for a long time, The Biggest Loser. Do you guys know that show?
Absolutely.
And so I remember, like, when I first got booked, I was like, well, it's another, you know, reality show, you know, but because of course I was like, I want to shoot for Vogue, you know.
Yeah.
But the emotional takeaway from working on that show, you know, the people that were on that show went through a whole body switch, you know, they got in shape and they became healthy. And I was the person that got to spend that last moment where they presented themselves to the world as this new person that has really worked hard to bring their bodies to where they were at that point. And I mean, I would get in my car after work and cry, because I could feel how good they felt. And it's really like, that's another reward, is the takeaway is to know that you help somebody feel so good in that moment, you know?
Yeah, you're part of this incredible transformation. That's
Yes,
so cool.
yes.
Cool. Alexa, can you go to the next slide,
Okay.
please? So we talked about landing the job with Britney Spears, but can you tell us a little bit about, like, that was your first moment as a stylist. So how did you harness that? Like, how did you work your craft? And then when you were telling me your story before, you know, this webinar, you talked about the moment where you knew you were going to parlay this into your own fashion brand and your own thing. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
So when Teresa hired me to go on the tour, I didn't really even know what to expect. I just knew I was getting out of there, like, and I was going to travel and see the world. As it turned out, you know, that tour happened to be the biggest tour besides Justin in the world, right? And we had 18 tour buses. So that means we traveled with a seamstress, and I was responsible for 8 dancers with, like, you know, 10 costume changes every show. So, you know, after the night of every show, we pack everything up in cases, we move locations, and in the morning, you go through each garment, right? You have to like make sure that nothing tore, like you have to reset the show essentially, like it's just like brand new, everything. After I would finish that, I started like side hustling the seamstress. Like I would give her money on the side to like start making things for me. And at that time it was, low rise Frankie B's, like ripped up denim, bleach, torn, everything really distressed. So it was really fun. And when, I guess, in between tours of Oops, I Did It Again and Dream Within a Dream, the woman I worked under was a woman named Tanya, who then became my partner for our first line, Joey and T. And that happened because of like being able to be inspired on the road and learning that I loved clothes. And it so happened that Tanya went to FIT. And so she had more of the business structure where I was definitely more of the creative. And, Joey and T it's an iconic brand in that era, like I just literally got the last Cam Festival, Paris and Nikki literally called me and said, we're in Cannes and we were just thinking about how you really defined fashion in that time. And, it's 20 years later. So that was like, I was like, can I save this message?
Right.
But
little reminders. That's so beautiful.
yeah. And, when you get on one tour, you get to meet the production people and, everybody's switching around camps and tours depending on who's putting music out at the time. And so I think that it's just like a spider web of like opportunities. So as long as you're there and you're working and you're not just kind of riding the wave, which is hard because, you get close with like, we got very close with Britney. So she'd be like, hey y'all, should we fly to the Bahamas today? And like, go out and swim, like, sure, let's do that. But you have to really balance the personal with the professional because you're still responsible to get your work done,
Yeah, for sure.
You still want to fly to the Bahamas.
Yeah. I know we always talk about like the power of network or friendship. It's exponential. And it's really important to nurture your relationships, not just on the friendship side, but on your, on the business side as well, because you never know where these opportunities are going to lead.
Yeah. And to stay focused on what put you there. Like,
yeah.
Like, and not get caught up in, oh, now we're just like playing, but to remember, like, you're there to do your work. So that's always first.
And that you have a talent and it needs nurturing as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's always evolving.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what's fun about fashion.
All right. I think we can hit the next slide, which is, in this book, there is such an incredible sense that you've like gained this perspective on kindness and how to treat yourself. And we're talking about this month at Grasshopper, we're talking about investing in yourself. How did you get to the point where you could write yourself from such a place of kindness?
It's a real question because you like go through so much, like there's so many other feelings like anger and hurt and you want to blame people. But when I don't know how it happened, but I just think through the process of writing the book and remembering the things and like some of the things I was reading, I was like, oh my God, I'm reading about myself right now. Like I had gone so far in my career that I had tucked Jennifer away. Like Jen wasn't even existing anymore, and I realized that like, if Jen never happened, I wouldn't be who I am right now, you know? And I think just having a grateful heart and remembering that, you know, you're good. Like, I don't think that God or the universe gives you anything that you cannot handle. And if you're being challenged, it's because you're capable, and there's work for you to do. There's work, and you may not know what the work is. I didn't know that I was supposed to write this book. I didn't know that this book was going to become what it has become. And I think during writing the book, you teeter, like you go back and forth. Sometimes I got angry and I would be like, I don't want to do this. I don't even know why I'm thinking about this stuff anymore. Like, I'm past this. And then I would go to like my soul purpose, which I feel like this is something I was supposed to do. This is part of my imprint that I'm going to leave behind. Like, for my son, like my son's going to have this book. Like, this is like it would be very off to me that I could have the life that I have now and the career that I have now and not be entirely grateful for even the traumatic childhood. Like, I think that it helped make me a stronger, more interesting person, you know, like my perspective is unique, you know, and I feel like I'm empathetic to situations more so than probably others because of how I grew up, you know, like even with all of the interns that I've had, you know, I've never been very like, what school did you go to? You know, I'm like, what, like, I want to know you, and I would like get to know the person, and that's how I would have them in my space. It didn't always necessarily come down to, well, I went to FIT. Well, I watched you tape up that box, and I don't know. They did the box, even like, it's an aesthetic career. It's an aesthetic environment. So when you're doing returns, you need to make sure that it's received as like a beautiful gift, you know? Mm-hmm. So it's just little details, but you know, people's education definitely is important, but I also think that everybody, it's an equal opportunity. If you put yourself out there, you can't be afraid to just, all you can do is put yourself out there, and all they can do is say no. It's like as simple as that.
Yeah.
And somebody's going to say yes, you know, persistence.
Absolutely. Let's move to the next slide, Alexa. Thank you.
I feel like I'm like getting so off.
No. There's a lot to talk about. And so I'm just trying to pace us so we can get through all these gorgeous slides and artwork. So I don't mean to cut you off, but you're so on track here. You talk a lot in the book about the journey to the now. And so all of us know or you know, we hear that the journey is important, and it's so hard to grasp that as you're going through your career, as you're pivoting, as you're making changes, because all of those changes, those transformations feel so hard, but we're always taught to, you know, enjoy the journey, savor the journey. But you talk about the now a lot. Why is the now so important to you?
I think that I spent so much time during my journey just trying to get to the next thing. You know, I was trying to just, success was so important. Like, I had to be more successful, and nobody cares about what you did yesterday. You know, I spent so much time doing that at the point where I'm at in my life, I think that I can really understand, looking back, that every single one of those moments that brought me to my now, right now, were so special. And that's why being present, like being fully present, and when you're speaking with somebody, try to like really like get into that moment and live right, and don't think about, I have to do this in an hour and I have to do this. And like, you really just need to stay present, because all of the present moments, when you get to the next moment, you look back, and if you weren't as present as possible, you didn't really take away what you were supposed to take away from that particular moment that was a gift, because every single moment is a gift.
Yeah, I think now we're all so used to multitasking, we're slacking, we're texting, we're, emailing at the same time as we're having conversations on
Yeah.
Zoom, that there's, we lose the nuances. So it really is so important. And you have a reference to Eckhart Tolle here in another slide. So let's move to the next slide, and we'll hit that soon. But what are some of the ways that you invest in yourself? And I just called out a few categories here. So, socially, financially, personally, anything. What do you do to invest in yourself?
I feel that I've spent a lot of my life like curating a very special group of friends that I
Yeah.
know have my back no matter what. And I am very I'm very much like spending time with them as much as possible and bringing us together as a group, because I mean, it's not only women, but it's predominantly women, and we don't let too much time pass before we connect again. Life happens and we get busy, but I definitely invest socially in the people that I know really, really love me. And I try not to spend too much time in situations that are very surface, financially, I think that investing in yourself financially, that to me feels like, I invest financially in a lot of designer clothes. Some
Always important to look good and feel good.
Yeah, I think that, and taking care of yourself, like maintenance, getting your hair done, getting a facial, like getting a massage, getting your nails done. I think all of those things are important to make yourself feel good.
Do you ever feel guilty? And maybe I'm revealing too much about my personal sort of like battle here, but that you're working, and so trying to create that balance between the maintaining yourself, as you just mentioned, and the work and the friendships. Like how do you fit it all in?
Very carefully. Literally, I literally have a list of things I have to do every single day, and I try to stay on it. Of course, things get carried over, but I really I make sure I have time to do the things that I know that I need to do, like maintenance wise, to feel good and feel like able to present myself in social situations.
That's a very good point. A very good point.
It's
All right,
important.
let's move to the next slide. Okay, so we're talking about roadblocks in your journey to self-investment, and you called out 3 really big themes here: procrastination, self-doubt, self-discipline. Can you give us examples of how these have been roadblocks for you and how you've gotten past them?
Well, the entire time I was working on the book, I downloaded the audio version of The Power of Now. So while I was working on the book, I constantly was listening to The Power of Now, constantly. And I found myself sometimes overwhelmed at like where I saw the book going, and I knew the work that was involved. I felt a lot of pressure, and it sort of made me procrastinate because it felt almost too big to do, And then of course, self-doubt would happen. Like, what if I write this book and nobody even likes it? And what if it's just like a huge waste of time? And I had to really get back to, you know, who I am, and really respect my unique childhood, and use self-discipline to keep going, because it's really easy to wipe it away and just live, you know, in my current situation and be happy and be proud of the work I've done. But this was actually real work, because it was working through things on the inside that I was ignoring, and I was procrastinating, and it because it was almost too hard to deal with. But I think that if you have the right people around you that are championing you and being like, you can do this and let's get back to it, that was really important for me to have, you know, special people around me that was like, Joey, keep going, you know. So that's part of the previous slide, which is socially, like, who you put around you is so important, because their energy is going to influence your energy. And so I'm really lucky that I had my friends that knew how tender the book was, the topic, and they kept me moving.
And just what is your style of outreach to people, to your friend group, to your support group when you need help? Is it kind of like a text or a phone call just saying like, I'm really stuck on this? Or like, how do you help yourself help others get through it?
I will literally, like, I think I use comedic release.
Yeah.
So I am on a group text with my core girls, and, you know, all of us, we just like, okay, today this happened. And then we all sort of chime in. So I guess we have our own little special network of support. So yeah, you know, I'd be like, okay, well, today really, you know, bleep, bleep, bleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I think having a good support group around you, and I think having people that can call you out and be like, yo, what's the holdup? Come on, let's move. You know, it can't all just be like, you can do it, Joey. You also need the hard, you know, like, hey,
Yeah.
get over yourself. Like, keep it moving. You have stuff to do.
Oh, I love that. Group texts. I'm all
Yeah.
about it. Let's see what is on the next slide. Okay. So you put together 5 things that you've learned along your journey. Failure is not defeat. Never stop learning, find inspiration, pay attention to action, trust your own abilities. While these are self-evident, sometimes people just need examples of what this means to you. Can you tell us, you know, the story behind any of these?
Well, failure is not defeat. When I launched my first clothing line, my first show was with IMG Mercedes-Benz, and, you know, it was a huge success publicly. Like, I would be in Tokyo watching my fashion show on the subway. You know, they would show it in Paris. Like, it's an iconic show. But because my partner and I didn't see eye to eye and separated, it felt like failure. You know, like, how could a company that literally we were in every Bloomingdale's and Nordstrom's across the country, like, it was like, I mean, you'd have to be an idiot for that to fail. It was moving. But because the infrastructure that I had with my business partner wasn't on the right track, and I probably didn't listen to the red flags and pay attention to certain things I should have been paying attention to, it was a learning step. It was a learning curve. So that's why I never stop learning. You never know everything. Like, the second you think you know everything, you actually know nothing. Like, you never stop learning. And, you know, that what I felt as failure with Joey and T led me to Joey Tierney, which also was great but there were some fundamental things that I didn't learn the first time. So then it felt like I failed that time too, kept going. Now I have Simone Kid and I have a partner. We work really well together. She's like my sister, and she and I like kept it small. I also, never stop learning. So the people that you put around you and the people that are around you, you try to absorb, anything that they have to teach you, especially if they've been around longer and, are more successful. There's got to be a takeaway. And at the time, I didn't understand how brilliant he was, but Christian Auger from Von Dutch, he really was into Britney Spears. He wanted Britney Spears and Von Dutch. We were trying to launch a skirt line, but we didn't have production lined up. But I knew that he had production on the top floor of his store on Melrose, like sewers. So we made a trade. Britney went ahead and wore Von Dutch for us because she was a huge supporter. Obviously, she like pushed us to do the line. And Christian did all of our production. But the one takeaway that I still use today, and what I presented to my current business partner, Britney, was, she had never done a full line. I'd done two. And with my second line, I went into Max Fields, and the buyer, Sarah, said, Joey, first of all, the quality of the clothes that you make are I can't believe you're making them in LA. I'm detail oriented, and I'm a fabric snob. So everything was really beautiful, but the way they allocate funds and buying is that, and my style is very classic lines, like very like timeless. Like if you go back to my 2007 line, every single thing on the runway you can wear today. We were literally just talking about it because it's crazy. It's crazy. But being a new brand, a company only has a certain amount of funds to allocate for a designer. But at that time, I didn't realize I had 60 samples, right? But you have to have the whole line to show, to display who that person is, like who are you designing for, right? So that means that particular store would have to allocate a lot of funds on a brand that's just launching, instead of like obviously like a Dior or like a Fendi or a Gucci. They know that's going to sell. Yeah. So that was another learning curve for me. So when Britney and I, we did the samples, we did, I think we had like 40 samples or something, and the entire rack was in front of us. And I said, okay, Britney, pick one piece that we did that can stand alone on a rack in a store in different colors. We use one style, and that's what we're known for. And that's what Christian said to me when he was doing the skirts. He said, you guys are going to be the skirt girls. He says, do one thing and do it right and be known for it. You don't have to design everything. You don't have to do everything. Do one thing and do it the best. And, a perfect example of that is, look what Stacey Bendet with Allison Olivier has done. She started with one style of pants. They called her Stacy Pants, and look at the empire she's built. But she stayed true to those pants season after season after season after season, until her company was strong enough to now look what they've done, right? Mm-hmm. So she's a perfect example of really like doing one thing really well and being known at that one thing. And so that's what Simone Kid is. We do sand washed silk dusters, and they're so beautiful, and we do them in different colors, and we have one style, and that's what we're sticking to, and it's proved to be very successful.
It's all about honing the craft.
Yes.
I think perhaps our next slide, let's see what it is. Okay, I want to, let's go through this quickly because I want to make sure that we open up for questions before the hour. But Joey, want to go through your 5 tips for investing in yourself?
Do what you love and what inspires you, because if you don't love what you do and you're not inspired, you're not going to be happy. And so you're going to spend every day miserable. You have to at least, you have to love and be inspired. Everything, literally, like everything inspires me. Rooms, everywhere I go, I'm inspired. I try to find it everywhere.
Yeah.
Don't pay attention to the critics. Own your own unique perspective. That's what sets us apart. Everybody's going to have something negative to say. And if they're critiquing you, it's probably because you're doing something right or threatening them on some level. Because if they were doing what they were wanting to do and they were at the level that they were at, that they wanted to be at and saw themselves to be at, they wouldn't be putting you down. So people are going to critique you. It's probably a sign you're on the right path. And you really have to really own your own perspective. Like, you don't want to do what somebody else is doing. They're already doing it. You can spin it and be inspired by it, but make it your own. And you have to, well, believe in yourself 100%, because if you don't believe in yourself 100%, how is anybody else going to believe in you? You know, because by the way, they're still trying to believe in themselves 100%. So, you know, don't have expectations. Trust your path and that you've done the work to produce the outcome that is meant for you. I don't mean don't have expectations, like don't like shoot for the stars, but don't let your expectations outweigh what the work you've done to produce. Like, let's say, let's use a fashion show, for example. What were my expectations? My expectations were to produce a line that goes into stores and goes on and on and on and on and on and creates an empire, right? I did have expectations, and I think I suffered like a little bit of depression because the partnership broke up. It didn't go the way that I wanted it to go, but because I did the work to get me to the point of even having the fashion show, it was meant for me to go on and do my own show. So everything is just like a little step to the next place. And so you can't totally just want to just quit. You just can't quit. You just have to keep going, even though things don't go exactly how you think that they're going to go. You know, we can't see the future. I didn't know that Joey and T was going to split up. I was going to continue styling and doing some of the best work that I've ever done in my life. After that, I didn't know that, you know, I was going to write a book and illustrate it, but I kept going, you know, persistence, focus, dedication, consistency. That's all of it. It always wins in the end. There we go.
So who has questions for Joey? Is that Ava? Yeah, I see a hand.
Yes. First of all, thank you, Joey, for being here. Your story is amazing. And thank you for being so vulnerable with it. And I'm so excited to read your book. My question is, how do you create any self-disciplinary patterns around believing in yourself? Because for me, like, I believe in myself 60% of the time, which is about as often as I genuinely want to go to the gym. But I'm able to go to the gym 90% of the time because of that self-discipline. I struggle to create that discipline around believing in myself. So I'm wondering if you have any tips or suggestions.
Well, I think that as much as like I could say that I'm so self-disciplined, I have to work at it every day too, you know. I think that it depends on how bad you want the results and how quickly you want the results. And I think that the self-discipline has to come down to you. How bad do you want to get to where you're trying to be? Like, you're using the gym as an example. So like, whatever your gym results are, which by the way, I want to go to the gym every day. Do I go? I don't. I want to. So I could really use some help in the self-discipline there. Like, but honestly, I think that it just really depends on how bad you want it. Like, how bad do you want it? Because if you want it bad enough, you're going to have self-discipline and make sure it happens. I think. I don't know if that helps. Does that help? I don't know.
Yeah, I think sometimes you just need that like swift kick in the ass of like,
Yeah.
just that's
Like
it.
literally, like I will out loud talk to myself and be like, hey, Joey, like what's going on? Like pull it together. Like, and sometimes it's not as nice of words. I'll be like, hey, get it together. And honestly, like I talk to myself in the mirror sometimes. Like I have to tell myself because I am ultimately responsible for myself, you know? So sometimes you just have to really tell yourself in the mirror.
Eva,
It has worked for me.
Sorry to interrupt. I was just going to say, it's such a good point that like getting to the gym, I think there's just such an external emphasis and focus on working out, and it becomes trendy. And also we know that we need to do it for our health and also our mental wellness, but believing in ourselves is a little, it feels woo-woo, like a little wishy-washy, but
Yeah.
in essence, it's the most important thing.
It's the most important
exactly
thing.
what's going to carry you through your day.
Because nobody else is going to get you to the gym because they're trying to get themselves to the gym. So it really comes down to like, you really have to, I guess like the one thing I do every day is tell myself every day what I need to do and I need to get through it. And I don't know if this had happened when we had spoken about the book before, but the book now, well, to be quite honest, I was at an eyelash appointment and it happened while I was getting my eyelashes done. But I realized that the last page of the book is a mirror now. Can you see that?
We can, yeah.
So the last thing that you do when you read my book is see yourself.
I love it. That's so
That was,
beautiful.
and that came to me at the very end. And had I rushed my book and put all that pressure instead of letting the process happen as natural as possible and getting myself through the emotional pieces of it, I wouldn't have thought of that. It took time and it had to come together, and everything is really, I think everything happens exactly when it's supposed to happen.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I know that we're at time, but I want to make sure that we have time for you. No? All right. Well, Joey, thank you so much. And just as Ava said, thank you for sharing yourself, your story. Thank you all for being here with us and with Joey. And we're so excited. We have more collaborations with Joey in the future. So stay tuned. Stay tuned for all of our December events. And Alexa, anything you want to share?
No, I loved it. I took a screenshot from a quote, so maybe everyone actually could say one takeaway. That would be awesome to hear. But I wrote down nothing defines you but yourself, and I just literally am obsessed with that. So actually, if everyone would perhaps want to just say one thing that was their biggest takeaway, I think that would be awesome.
Or feel free to put it in the chat.
I don't know if I have, sorry, you can't see me, I'm outside in the dark, but I don't know if I have a biggest takeaway, but I just found your whole story really inspiring. So thank you so much, Joey. Really inspiring.
That means a lot. Thank you so much for watching and being a part of this.
Absolutely.
I think hearing that no one's going to do it but you, and that there's no reason to like wait for a, I don't know, magic formula or a secret cure. It's literally just getting out there every day and doing it and having that discipline. When you said, no one's going to take you to the gym, they're trying to get themselves to the gym, like that really resonated with me. So thank you.
Yes, it's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Allison, anything that Is the takeaway still there? I know you're on mute.
She put it in the chat.
Oh, she
Okay.
did. Okay, cool. Awesome. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I'm so like honored to be a part of this. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Joey. We love you.
We'll
I'm-
talk to you soon. And good luck with the book.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.